Welcome to the Board Game Doctors. In this episode, our top 10 board games we want digital versions of. Hey everyone, this is Phil with Board Game Doctors, and with me as always is Jacob.
Hey,
How you doing,
doing?
Jacob?
Doing great. How are you?
Dr. Jacob. We're very formal on this show, of course. So
Yes, of course. Even though I'm not technically a doctor yet.
well,
and neither are you. So
I actually am. I
are
did
you?
I am. Even though it doesn't feel like it, I'm in medical residency. I don't feel like a doctor, but I technically am, and so I am signing things out and being official. Yeah,
I didn't know that residency was actual doctorship.
it is. Yep,
Oh,
it's
that's great.
basically you're a physician in training, basically, and so it's like an internship with your degree. So
Dang. Okay, well, good to know, doctor.
yeah, thank you, doctor. Reminds me of that SpongeBob episode. Anywho, let's get into the episode. So today we've got a cool topic. We're gonna go through another top 10 list here, and talk about our top 10 games that we wish to see and have some sort of digital implementation, whether it's on Board Game Arena, if they develop a particular app for it, and what have you. Even if it's on Steam, I suppose that works as well. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk to you and find out what is on your mind as far as board games are concerned. I know you had a pretty awesome weekend. I did too. I'm excited to tell you about it, but go ahead and tell me about what shenanigans you got into with board games this weekend.
Yeah, so I was purposefully kind of trying to avoid telling you exactly what happened because I want your true reaction. I just counted. I took a picture. Last week we bought a bundle of 32 games.
Oh no.
Yeah. I did get approval from Emily first. But it was we met a really nice guy who lives around here in New York, and he actually runs some charity events for conventions around here and has connections with publishers. And so we saw a posting on Facebook Marketplace. We're like, oh, cool, we'll reach out and give him an offer. And he was like, oh, we were like, okay, what are you thinking per game? And so we shot him an offer, and he was like, how about like 100 less than that? Like he dropped our offer by $100, and we're like, oh my gosh, okay, cool.
Yeah, some anti-haggling there.
Yeah, and I was like, what the heck? And so I went to meet him, and he was super nice and just like, yeah, like lots of these were like demo copies and from people, and he like runs charities for the hospital and stuff. They're like super nice guy. And he knew that I had also like tried to give away some games for Christmas, and so he's like, oh, that's great. Like take these, and like even let me take like his extra box for Role Player, because I did like a print and play for Role Player, so I have a box for it now. And so just really nice guy. And then even when we were walking away, he like was like, I'll drop the price $50 more. And I was like, oh my gosh, dude, what the heck?
Wow.
So he was just super nice. Yeah, so we've had this stack of like 30 plus games on our table, and I've made it an effort because we have our top 100 poster that we're trying to scratch off all the Board Game Geek 100 games, right?
Right.
And we have like 5 games in this stack that are on the top 100. And so we're trying to cut through and scratch off as many as we can. So we've played, I believe, 15 new games over the last week.
Nice.
With lots of time and effort.
Cool.
Yeah, we just played Dominant Species for the first time, which was
nice.
great.
Yeah.
We played Lorenzo Il Magnifico, which was awesome. Like, really liked it. And we have just tons more waiting. We have Aeon's End on the table waiting to play. And, just several more. We got our own copy of Scythe finally. Yeah, just lots of good games. So we had a semi-unusual week and have been playing more games than usual because we want to get this stack of shame off of our table.
Oh, for sure. That's amazing. Not a lot of people come home with that kind of haul. very often. So,
Yeah,
and
no, and for like such a good price. Like it comes out to about $5 a game. And I was like,
oh
wow.
wow, that's amazing. And
Yeah.
yeah, some really good games there. If you don't like them, you can, you know, give them to a new home for, you could probably make a profit there too. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. And speaking of which too, like we were talking about this off the air about just playing all of the top 100 board games on Board Game Geek in the top 100 list there, and just finally coming around to playing some of these games that are, highly praised, and yeah, so it looks like you've got a leg up there. We should make that a goal by the end of the year to see if we can get through as many as we can. If not, whoever can get there first wins or something. And
Yeah, I think you're already beating me as far as the top 100 goes because you told me that you had played like 60 something of them, right?
yeah, 50 or 60. I mean, and it's tough too because some of them on the top 100 lists are repeats, like Agricola, Eclipse, Gloomhaven has Jaws of the Lion, and so it's really,
Mm-hmm.
you know, tough to really say what is truly in the top 100 and what does count or not. Uh,
Yeah.
but anywho, I think if you can get through at least the single titles that are in the top 100, I think that counts for sure. But yeah, I mean, and it helps too that a lot of these are digitally implemented. Like Lorenzo Magnifico, I played on
Mm-hmm.
Yukata.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, and we can always play that together. And I've been trying to. I've played it a couple times with the advanced mode as well, and I'm still trying
Mm-hmm.
to sink my teeth into it and really figure it out and see if it's a game for me to do a deep dive of. But it's definitely a fun game for sure. And yeah, I've enjoyed my plays of it.
Mm-hmm.
And other games like that too. I don't have a way to play dominant species, so maybe maybe what we can do, you can take pictures of it, and I can tell you what my turn is, and we
It's
can do it
straight
like,
up on the table. It looks like cones of Dunshire. It has little cones everywhere.
oh,
It's so great.
that's hilarious. Okay, we definitely need to play it.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. What's the highlight been? What's your favorite game that you've played so far out of this stash?
Oh, that is tough. Honestly, I guess not a highlight because I would think my favorite of all of them so far was Lorenzo Magnifico.
Uh huh.
Just was it just really hit a sweet spot for me that I was not expecting. I thought it'd be kind of a dry Euro, but it really worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but one that I was really surprised by was Flashpoint, which is an
Yeah.
older co-op game where you're like trying to save a house that's on fire, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, it really is. It's like Pandemic, but more random, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it was so fun. Like I just had a really good time with it, and it allows for a little more creativity than Pandemic. It's a little more open, a little more chaotic. Um, you could like cut a wall down to get through a wall, get to another room faster, but then you damage the house, and so I think it like allows for a little more spontaneity and chaos, which really fit the theme. And so that one really just knocked it out of the park for me. Um,
Yeah.
so we really, really liked that one. And we played Super Motherload as well, which is kind of a mix of like Minecraft, Spelunky, SteamWorld Dig kind of thing where you're mining and trying to get the best jewels. But then all your jewels go toward buying new cards for your deck. So it's kind of like a video game, like mining game
Uh-huh.
mixed with a deck builder, and it's really clever. So I really liked that one as well.
Huh. Okay. I've never heard of that one.
It's great. The name is kind of funky, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
We really really enjoyed it.
That's cool. I remember I've played Flashpoint too. I played it when I was like 15 years old. I played it with one of my friends who back then, it was way before I got into board games as heavily as he did. I probably played Pandemic and maybe a handful of others that were modern at that time, and Flashpoint was one of them. I remember I tried to pick up a cat, I think, and I failed and I burned inside the house with the cat, and
Sad.
yeah, walked away from that game with lots of shame.
Oh my
But
gosh, yeah.
yeah, I'll have to try it again and see if I can do better.
Yeah, it like I said, it was chaotic, but I think it for a co-op game, there's a surprising lack of like alpha gamer, right? Where it's like just so
Hmm.
chaotic.
Yeah.
Um that you really don't know what the optimal move is, and you're kind of just improvising to make the best of a bad situation, which I think again, fits kind of the theme of a house on fire, right? And so
Right.
it really just it was so fun. I really liked it.
That's
I can't wait to get it to the table again. So
awesome. Yeah. Pull out that old one. Uh, that sounds like fun.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, on my mind, so I also played more physical board games than I usually do on a typical weekend. Most of my gaming these days is online when I have time, but
Hmm.
I was able to, so actually backing up, we have some friends who, our daughter is friends with their daughter. And I mean, my wife grew up with this mother as well, and they were neighbors back in the day, and now we have kids about the same age. And I met her husband for the first time, and we were actually, it was actually at my daughter's birthday. We were talking. They came down to our basement. They saw the shelf of Glory, and saw all of our games, and was like, his jaw dropped, and like, oh, I love board games, but I've never heard of what's this game, Agricola?
Oh
And
my gosh.
I'm like, settle in. I
Ooh,
told,
poor guy.
and I was like,
Just kidding.
hey, yeah, I know, no, 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 no. Hey, I said, hey, have you ever like, like Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley? He's like, oh yeah, I love that theme. Well, this is like Stardew Valley, the board game, not talking about Stardew Valley, the actual board game, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
um, and I kept telling him about it, and his eyes was like, I've been looking for a game that is heavy, where I can strategize at the beginning of the game and just implement that throughout, and something that I can study. And I'm like, you're speaking my
That's it.
language.
Yeah.
You're gonna love Agricola. So we invited them back over a week later, and we played Agricola, and had another friend over, played it 3-player, and it was a lot of fun. They were laughing. They laughing until they found out, oh shoot, I need to feed my workers, and I'm running out
Yep.
of food. And so and then they got into serious mode, and but they still walked away just having a blast. And so we had a great time playing Agricola. We also played Glass Road.
Mm.
I pre-ordered it from Capstone last year on my birthday, which is in March. Got it in January, and it was totally worth the wait. The solo mode is fantastic. It's the solo mode is actually, it feels like it's as long as a multiplayer game. Um, and the way that it works is similar, but it feels different enough. Where if you haven't played Glass Road, it's a typical Ube Rosenberg game where you have lots of individualized buildings that you're building on your tableau. It's got that really nice nature, outback German theme. Um, Actually, I don't know if that makes any sense. Outback German. That
Yeah. That's very
okay.
Uwe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Anywho, but the twist in this game is that everyone has the same deck of 15 cards, and you're choosing 5 of those to play, or you're choosing 5 to have in your hand each round. You play 3 of them, and if you play the same card as someone else has in their hand, then you both get to play those and only choose one of the 2 actions that are listed on the card. And so there's a lot of tension as far as like, oh, okay, I really need to pick these 5 cards to get the resources that I need to buy this building before someone else does. But I hope they don't play this so I can use both actions, but then they do. But it allows you to play some more cards from your hand, and it's such a sweet mix of strategy and tactics, because you have to think on the fly, like, okay, well, this is the best that I've got. I can only use one action. I might as well do this, and now I can go for this building and see what happens. And it plays super quick. You only play 4 rounds. At least with 2 players, you only play 4 rounds, and so games are like 30 minutes, 45 minutes tops, and as soon
Wow.
as you know how to play. But it's such a brain burner in those 45 minutes, and so it's the perfect game, and it's shooting up my favorite games of all time list. I knew I really liked it, and that's why I bought it. But now that I'm playing it in person, I am just so excited for it, and want to keep playing it. So that was fun. And I've been thinking a lot about Earth. Really, I made that podcast last week, and posted the video as well on our YouTube channel and put that on Board Game Geek. It was really cool to have some support from the designer and saying, "Hey, thanks for the video, thanks for the support." And it's like, "Yeah, you're welcome." And the more more I think about it, uh, the more excited I want to play it because I think it's in my wheelhouse of these games with individualized components such as cards or buildings. In this game they've got cards, and it's another quick game, 45 minutes to 60 to an hour, an hour long game at tops. And you're building your engine, uh, putting cards down on your tableau, but you can kind of put them in any order you want, so you can really fiddle with your engine however you need to in order to fulfill so many different objectives. Every game is going to feel different, and so that's definitely up my wheelhouse. And if I've got a little bit of extra cash to spend here, I hope to back it. Um, so yeah, I've just been thinking about those games and just had a great weekend playing games too. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, and I'm diving into the old, and you're diving into the new, so we are
yeah,
covering the whole spectrum.
we are. We'll meet in the middle somewhere.
Yeah,
So maybe we can do that with our topics. So
yeah. Well,
yeah, so let's dive in and talk about our top 10 games, 5 each. We made these lists separately, and we were just talking about it. Like we feel like these games technically don't have digital implementations, or at least you know digital versions of the game that we prefer. One of my games believe is on Steam already, but I usually don't go and hop into Steam to play. It's a little bit more expensive. I'd rather play an app that's mobile, and so I may have given a little bit of leeway there. But I really, yeah, games that we really enjoy playing. Maybe we've played it, physically with some people, but for me at least, the way that I approach this list is games that I've tried out or have been wanting to try out, and I maybe have played it on Tabletop Simulator, which I'm not going to count for this list because a lot of games are found there anyway. But something that's like an official app or an implementation on Board Game Arena, where I can just get a lot of reps in. That's just the type of gamer that I am. I love finding those games that I can sink my teeth into and play, 25 times, 50 times or something, and really get into the strategy, which I hope to convey with this podcast as well as my point of view on games. But yeah, so that's kind of how I approached my list on making, on which games I wanted to feature. Was there any particular way that you approached your list, Jacob?
I was thinking more of Board Game Arena because that is where I spend so much of my digital gaming time. Like you said, I mean, I've done some of the Humble Bundle, Asmodee games. Like um, I almost never want to play Small World on an actual table again because it's so good
Yeah,
on a digital device. Um, like one game here that I have start on my list is Sentinels of the Multiverse, right? Because like you said, um, there is a Steam version, right? But it's more common for me to just like want to pop in and have a multiplayer asynchronous game going and like take a turn, right? Because the asynchronicity is really what I love about Board Game Arena, and being able to play these longer, more complicated games asynchronous, where if I open up Steam, I'm dedicating a 2 hour chunk
yeah,
to do that,
time
right? And
block.
so
Yeah,
um, I approached more of like Sentinels already does have a digital adaptation, so that's more of an honorable mention, and Small World, right? But these
mm-hmm.
other ones are ones that I think would fit really well, specifically the format of Board Game Arena, because of the asynchronicity, um, and just like the way that these games would also be automated well. So that's how I approached it, more of the Board Game Arena approach. But if these got an adaptation anywhere, it'd be great.
For sure. Yeah, I think anything is better than nothing, and any chance to play a good game with real people on our own terms, I think, is a win. So awesome. If I were to throw out an honorable mention as well, of course I would go with something by Uwe Rosenberg, and specifically something that I would love to see on Board Game Arena would be games like At the Gates of Loyang, which is already on Yukata, but
Hmm.
of course BGA is a little bit easier to navigate and use, and so I wouldn't mind seeing that transfer there. Other games like Newsfjord, or at Labora. Mercator is a game that I've never played, and no one has transcribed that to Tabletop Simulator, so that would be an awesome game there too. Just off the top of my head, I think Le Havre is also one that has its own app, but it's really hard to try to find people to play with. I've
Hmm.
never had any success, and because I think the app is a little bit older. So if that gets implemented into even Yukata or even Board Game Arena, where I can actually play with some people and not the AI, that would be prime for me. So oh yeah, so let's get into this list. I'll start, and so the cheat game that I have here is already there's a version of it on Steam already, and I think there is talks of it coming to the mobile scene as well. But it's Brass Birmingham. So
Hmm.
Brass, the original Brass, which Lancashire has been based off of, is already an app. I got it over Christmas, and I'm waiting to dive a little bit deeper and play it. There's also a website. I forget the name of the website. I'll try to put it in the show notes if I remember. But there you can also play the original Brass, and I've played it a handful of times with some real people. But I have not been able to play Brass Birmingham itself, which is a game that I'm super interested in playing with other people, and specifically the Birmingham version, since it's obviously well regarded. It's I think the number 2 or 3 spot right now and on Board Game Geek, and it's an amazing game. So Brass, if you haven't heard of it, you have this map of old time, like industrial revolution London, and or in this case around Birmingham, and the game kind of goes through 2 phases. The first phase is the boat phase, or the I suppose the boat phase, the canal phase
Yeah,
is what it's
Canal.
called. Yeah, where you're building up some industries. It's a heavy economic game where your resource is basically money. You're paying money to build buildings on the the map, but only if you have a certain card in your hand that allows you to do so, whether it's the industry type itself or the city that you want to play in. And the twist here is that once you put a building on the map, someone else can kind of connect their own route to that building, and these buildings offer like iron or what have you for resources, and you can utilize those resources that someone else had put on to further your game, help you build buildings, and use those resources to get victory points. And so it's really tight push and pull between you wanting to use other people's routes, but then block them at the same time later so they don't build on your route, and so you can get to the market and sell your cotton and things like that. And so it's a delicious game full of strategy and and planning, which I am prone to like, and have really enjoyed my plays of Brass, and just look forward to seeing what makes Brass Birmingham different and supposedly better. There are lots of discussions on which one is better, just as any game like Terra Mystica versus Gaia Project. There's Agricola versus Caverna. There's always going to be an argument which one is better, but I want to really play this game and find out for myself if I like it more than the original Brass. So that is my first game on the list, is Brass Birmingham.
I totally agree with that too. Also, I've played Brass Lancashire several times. I've played the new version and the old version, and it's just so tight and so precise, right? And the thing that I've heard, and also why I would love to try it as well, is I've heard it loosens up just a little bit with the beer,
Mm.
where beer is a little more open, where you don't have to necessarily be connected directly to something to sell. And so, like, even if you're kind of trapped in a part of the map, that you can sell beer.
Okay.
So it's a little more open and loose, which I think sounds like it'd fit my play style a little bit better. So I look
Yeah.
forward to the day that I get to play Birmingham as well.
Sure.
Um,
and
yeah,
and I
so
and I know that there are talks about, or there were talks about this game being made into an app soon on like
ooh,
a iOS or Android version. And so I'm really hoping that they pull through soon. So if not, then we'll have to just try this out on Steam or on
Yeah,
tabletop. So yeah.
exactly. Perfect. Moving on to my number one. Well, I guess not my number one, but my first pick
Yeah.
um is a game that I really like, and one that just lasts a little bit too long on the tabletop to get out frequently, and so therefore why I think I would love to have this as an adaptation is Paladins of the West Kingdom.
Ooh, good
Um,
choice.
this is one I should hate this game. I'm not usually a very heavy gamer. This is very much planning and sticking to a strategy. Um, but there's just something, I think I talked about this in my top games, but just the way that you combo in this game to get more workers is just so good and so awesome. Um, but our games frequently run over 3 hours. And
Hmm.
so it's just a little bit too long. And so for me, I would love to have an adaptation of this on Board Game Arena. Because something I love about Board Game Arena is you get that time to think through a really crunchy turn
Hmm.
in small bites. So it's like I can take 5-10 minutes to take this turn now and it'll be satisfying. And then a couple hours from now I can take another crunchy turn and not have it turn into 3 consecutive hours, right? So
Yeah,
you get that crunchiness in little bites. And so I think Paladins is that perfect thing to have that thinky turn and to churn it out and to be able to take turns over time. And so for me, I would love to see this as an adaptation, to play asynchronous games of it with people.
for sure. And it's funny, like these games that do take a long time in real time, even though they probably take uh, quite a while. I'm thinking about my games of Agricola that I play on Board Game Arena. They probably take about 2 weeks or so to get through the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
If we're taking like 1 or 2 turns per day, which is average, it still doesn't feel that long because every time
Yeah.
you're taking a turn. You're thinking about it, you're writing some notes or something. 5 minutes later, you're done, and you've taken your turns on any other game that you're playing, and so it feels like you're just you're adding like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and yeah, it every single day it doesn't feel like a lot, and then all of a sudden you're done with the game, and it's like, oh, that was quick. Let's just do it again. And so Paladins would work really well here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will. I don't know if I guess since I did it, it's totally fine. But I like signed up to be a quote unquote developer on Board Game Arena, or like the Board Game Arena studio.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was interested in trying my hand at developing, but it's totally out of my wheelhouse right now. I would have to dedicate so much time to learning how to program, but I mostly wanted to go on just to see what games they had licenses for and what games were in the works pre-alpha. And Paladins is one of them.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that makes me very happy.
as well as Architects. They at least have the licenses for those. I want to say Paladins is being worked on, and hopefully we do see Architects pretty soon. It looked like it was pretty deep into development there, so hopefully that works its way through, and we get the chance to do that soon. So
Yeah, because
there you go.
Architects is the only one of the trilogy I have not played, and that's like the most popular one. So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
look forward to that too.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. Okay, moving on. My second game, number 3 on the list here, is a game that is near and dear to my heart. It was one of the games that I consider one of the games before my pre-modern board game craze, which ultimately has led me here with you, Jacob, to talk about it on a podcast. It's a game that I collected and would go on a deep dive as much as I did before. And this is Lord of the Rings: The Living Card Game.
Yep.
So another reason that I put it on this list, not because of nostalgia, but there is technically a Lord of the Rings living card game digital version of this game that was released about a year, 2 years ago. I was super excited about it. I believe they released it on Steam, maybe even some consoles or something like that. My father-in-law got it, And then they started to show some footage of the game, and it was completely different. Like the
Oh.
it was a card game, but they kept some of the same mechanisms, but it did not play the same. Like it,
Oh.
I mean, I think in and of itself as a game, it was, I think, pretty good. It was its own unique thing. I don't know if people are still playing it. I don't know if they're still supporting it even. Maybe because, in my opinion, because it did not reflect the original LCG, um, in its entirety. It wasn't a direct port, so that really bumped me out, and I ended up not getting it, and just kind of left it there. And so I would love to bring this to a digital version, and not necessarily to even play with other people, even though that would be nice. But I just for the for physical reasons, getting all of these expansions and adding these decks to my collection just takes up so much space. I think it would be easier and even cheaper to just have all of those cards be digital, like if it were like Hearthstone or something, and just have everything in one place on your phone. And in addition to that, too, I've kind of strayed away from these more campaign style games where you're playing the same scenario over and over again. The only thing that you change is your deck and which heroes you have. I've kind of strayed away from that because I feel like, well, I've kind of seen what happens in the game. Like, even though um, I lost, I did make it through all the way. I've kind of seen what the story has to offer. I know what the final boss looks like. I'm just not as intrigued these days anymore to, like, okay, well, I'm gonna make some fixes to my deck and make it all the way through. I don't know. It For games like this and Mansions of Madness, it just doesn't do it for me anymore. I would rather return to a game where it has, you know, more abstracted uh, approach to it, like a Euro game, and just play the strategy and play the people rather than experience the game. It's like with movies for me. Like, unless it's a fun Disney movie or something like that, I rarely return to a movie to watch it again just because I've seen it and the surprise is gone. Same with books. So for that reason, I think I would be willing to continue trying out the expansions and campaigns of Lord of the Rings if it were digital. I think I would save money in the long run there, and once again save some space. And so I think that would be cool. I could probably pull this out on Tabletop Simulator. I bet there's a module out there that has all the cards, whether that's legal or not. That's another story. That's
Questionable.
that's for another time and place for discussion. But um, regardless, I would love to see this as an app, Lord of the Rings living card game.
Yeah, just because I remember seeing this in the Humble Bundle I was looking at. It's Lord of the Rings adventure card game. So
Yeah,
it wears the same face, but it's quite different. Yeah, for what I've seen as well, which is a real bummer.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I get it, but still, they did just release the new, like, updated core set for Lord of the Rings. I think they're revamping the
Mm-hmm.
that and some of the expansions as well. And so, who knows? It's still getting some support, and maybe it'll make a comeback, and enough so to get a digital version. So we'll see.
We'll hope. Yeah. All right. So moving on to my next game. This is kind of a shift from Paladins of the West Kingdom. But I would love for Point Salad to be on board Game Arena.
Yeah, yeah.
I have not played Point Salad, but I look at it and I'm like, this is the type of game that I like, where it's variable scoring and it's set collection and it's drafting, which are just all like, three mechanics that I really like. And I
Mm-hmm.
love the idea of being able um, to draft things and just kind of like have a makeshift strategy that's kind of on the fly. And I feel like in previous episodes, we've talked about like Six Nimmt and Can't Stop, just like these really simple, quick type drafting games just work so well on a digital format.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's like if you're gonna pull out your phone and play a couple turns, like man, Point Salad would just fit that bill so well, just because it's elegant, it's quick, um, and it's like just that little bit of crunchy that you want, even if you don't want to go and take a heavy turn like on Feast for Odin, right? And you just want to take a quick turn, you can go to Point Salad and get that little bit, just get
Yeah,
that little hit of board game. And so
little taste of vegetable there, right? I
exactly, yeah.
I was gonna ask. I For some reason, like I think it's the theme, but I associate this game with Abandon All Artichokes. Is this a heavier game compared to that?
It is very different. Abandon All Artichokes is reverse deck building, right? Where the whole goal
Mm-hmm.
of the game is to cull, um, like to get those artichokes out of your deck, using the various player abilities. So this one, Abandon All Artichokes might actually be heavier, um, because you're trying to chain hand abilities and like get a card to activate something else to get artichokes out. Um, so it's more utilizing card abilities. Point salad is literally, just a point salad where you just have plain vegetable cards, no special abilities. But on the back side is a scoring condition, and there are three piles of cards that have their scoring conditions up. Um, but then there are vegetables below that, and if someone takes a vegetable, that scoring condition then turns into a vegetable. And so when people draft vegetables, the scoring conditions change every turn. Every card they take replaces a scoring condition. Um, so it's more of a quick, light drafting game. Whereas
Right.
Abandoned All Artichokes is more of like a ability comboing reverse deck builder.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just wasn't sure, like weight wise, if they were kind of similar, but
I think it might even be a little bit lighter. Yeah, it feels from what I've seen of it a little bit more like a button shy type game. Like wait,
okay.
if you've ever played like a button shy um
Yeah,
like
I've heard of them.
pocket
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it to me it seems a little bit like Circle the Wagons, which is like I love Circle the Wagons. It's just like a
Mm-hmm.
little variable scoring tile laying type card game. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would
Okay.
love to see that too. I'll cheat and throw that in there too.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, and that's a game that I've been wanting to try, so good
Hmm.
choice there. Yeah. So, next on the list, my third game on the list is also a lighter game. It's a game that we've played together, and it's one of my wife's favorite games. At least
Hmm.
I believe it's one of her favorite games. It's Tiny Towns.
Ooh.
And yeah, Tiny Towns. Yeah, so I was just looking through like my favorite games, and this one came up. And it's like, yes, this one would be perfect because one of the games that I've really grown to enjoy on Board Game Arena is Welcome to, where it's that's a roll and write where you can play a lot of people. I think up to 12 people or so. Maybe it's eight. Regardless, you can play a lot of people at the same time and just have a good group going. I believe you could do the same with Tiny Towns. It's not. It's technically, I think, a 5 or 6 player game on the box, but you could probably play it with more people. And I've heard of and seen of people playing this game on like Twitch streams or something like that, and people in the chat are just posting their scores. But if you haven't played Tiny Towns before, it's a light and straightforward game where you've got this was it 4x4 grid on your like little tableau. It's a tiny town that you're
Hmm.
building. Um, Either someone chooses a resource, you go around and you choose a resource of a certain color, or you flip over a deck and it tells you which resource you have to use, and you have to put that resource on a spot in the grid, and you are making a pattern like a like a polyomino type of pattern in order to replace those resources with a building of that same shape. And the buildings are variable in each game, and they keep the same shape, but the powers that they allow are a lot different in the way that they score or the way that they manipulate the resources that you have and things like that. And everyone has a special building that's unique that they can build as well. And so it's a very very fun, very quick game that I am horrible at. I always have like 5 resources just sticking out, and no shapes available to put buildings on. I always lose to Ariel, but I think this is a really fun game. It's really quick, and so even if you're bad at it like me, you can just pick it up again, shuffle the building types, and play with something different, and pull out a new game really quick and see if you do any better. So I think this would be really good on Board Game Arena. You could hopefully, they would do the same, give it the same treatment that they would Welcome to, where you can play multiple players at the same time. Maybe maybe avoiding the printed player count and increasing it. I think that would be cool. And yeah, it'd be a lot of fun to introduce some family and friends to this game virtually. I think it would make it easy. So yeah, that's my choice there.
I 100% agree. I love tiny towns, and I would love to be able to play this with family members across the country because this is just that perfect little game. With Welcome to, you're kind of at the mercy of the cards, and everyone just kind of has to suffer together and make the best
Yeah,
of a bad situation. But in tiny towns, if you're playing the regular version, there's a variant where you pull from a deck of cards, and you're just kind of at the mercy of the deck. But in
right.
the regular version, you choose a color, and then everyone has to deal with it, right? And so there's that little bit of like, I am so mad at you, mom, because you took a brown. I needed a yellow, right?
Yep,
Um, oh my gosh, yeah. I didn't know I needed this until you said that just now. I need Tiny Towns to be on Board Game Arena.
I
I,
do
I
too.
want to play that right now, actually. So,
Yes, I will
man,
not
that's so
sleep
good.
until this is on. Okay, maybe I will
Oh,
sleep,
that's
but
so good.
yeah.
Oh man, yeah, no, that is a perfect choice. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome, buddy.
Thanks. Moving on. This is a game that I love and that is pretty darn close to being in my top 10, and it's just every time I play it I like a little bit more. Um and that is Concordia.
Yeah,
Um and honestly, I can't say much else to defend it, for, well, not to defend it, but to defend my choice for it to be on a digital platform, other than I just want to be able to play it more, right?
mm-hmm.
But this is a game that I feel would work perfectly on a digital platform because it's very streamlined, it's very clean. You just have your deck of cards, and everything you do is tied to a card, right? And so you'd have to do is click a card, take your action, and move through. Um, and it just is screaming, it has that setup that would just scream for a digital adaptation. And I think this would be,
And
again, a really good one. Um, when
the,
you're sitting there playing a game of Concordia over
you,
a
you
lengthy.
Jake
Sorry, go
Jake
ahead.
you know that they just released this as an app like in December, right?
I did not.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah. I'll interrupt you there. Sorry about that, but it is an app. I got it over Christmas. Um,
Oh,
so hate to I
well, that is good news.
let's just say that I would love to see this game on Board Game Arena as well. I think that would be a really cool platform as well. But yep, I will say that I have played the app a couple times already.
Yeah, no, and it's just such a good game, and I think, yeah. What I was about to say is, like, when you play it, and I don't know how the app version works. I'm guilty of having not played very many apps of board games.
Hmm.
However, um I would love the asynchronous aspect of it, because again, when you're doing this in rapid succession, it can feel just a tiny bit long. I think that's one downfall of Concordia. Sometimes it feels a tiny bit long for me.
Hmm.
But being able to split it up into chunks, I think, would help that, and just get those little bite-sized bits of strategy throughout the day would be so good.
Yeah. I will say this. So I actually played this game. I just remembered for the first time like a year or two ago on the third website where you can play board games, Boîte à Jeux.
Hmm.
They do have Concordia there. It's of course not as clean as Board Game Arena, and so I walked away like not really understanding the game. I knew the rules, and
Hmm.
I think if you're used to playing heavy Euros, then they're pretty straightforward. But still, like okay, even though I know the rules, what should I do? And I think what you're saying is totally true, and I did get that by playing this app. Having things kind of slow down, and it's a really beautiful app. It's a really good implementation. I encourage you to check it out. But I did feel like I was able to understand the strategy of the game a little bit more as I played it with my father-in-law, actually, and it brought the game a little bit more to life, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I can vouch that it's a great great app.
Good to know.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, of course. Yeah, so good choice, fantastic game, as we all know. My second to last game, I'm looking at the list, and I've already talked about this game ad nauseum, but it's Glass Road.
Mm.
So, and I do mention this too because once again, when I looked into when I peeked into what games have licenses on Board Game Arena, Glass Road is one of them. However, the last time I checked, no one was developing it, which makes me frustrated. But Glass Road, I've already talked about how it plays and everything. I would just love to get this game. I could get so many reps in and just really dive into this game because every time I've played it, it's felt different. I've realized different things about buildings, about the cards in my hand, how it works, and what's the most optimal way to approach, building out your little tableau. It's such a good game, Jacob. Um, man, I can't stop thinking about it and how good it is. And so I am really hoping that soon, since the license is there, that I guess it's up to Capstone now. I don't know. I think they had the license out before Capstone took it,
Oh wow.
but yeah. So I just can't wait until it's an app. So or actually back in like 2016 or so, it was an app. I remember like Googling like on Reddit or something like, hey, what are the list of board game apps? Because it's really hard on an iOS to search just board games and have, a
Mm-hmm.
complete list of what is listed there. And it used to be an app. It was someone
Wow.
had developed it. It was supported, but the support for it has been long gone, which makes me
That's
sad
so
because it's such a
sad.
great game. Um, it should be higher on Board Game Arena, on Board Game Geek. It's still pretty high. It's in the 200s, but it's a top 100 game for sure. In my opinion, it's so good. So that's my number two is Glass Road.
Man, I definitely need to try it now.
Yeah.
Especially if you say it's a little bit shorter, because that might be one of my issues with Uwe is that sometimes they just feel a bit unwieldy to me. So if this is a shorter, more
Oh yeah.
manageable one, I think I might like it
Oh
better.
yeah. Yeah. I think you would. I think you would. It's over before you know it, and you've run a marathon in the time that it takes to do a 5K basically. So
Wow.
it's so fast and crunchy, but I love it.
That's awesome. We're coming to Utah this summer, so we might have to get together and play a game of it.
Oh, perfect. Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll do it.
I'll pull it out.
Um, yeah, some in-person gaming for once.
Yeah. What's that?
Yeah, right. um, all right. So my next game um comes from the fact that I really really love this game, and playing Dice Hospital on Board Game Arena made me just wish that this was a thing, and maybe it is.
Hmm.
It might be in the licensing somewhere. It might already they might already have the rights. But I would love to see role player on Board Game Arena.
Yeah.
Um, I I love role player. I think um, if you've ever played Sagrada, um,
Hmm.
Sagrada is this nice little dice laying puzzle where you can't have numbers next to each other, you can't have colors next to each other, and it gets that nice little almost Sudoku, dice laying element where it's like this really really satisfying little puzzle,
Yeah.
um, which is great. And I love Sagrada, and I like Sagrada a lot. I think I like role player just a little bit better because every row that you place a die in, you're building like a Dungeons and Dragons character, right? And whenever you put a die into the tray, um, the number of pips is counts toward that like characteristic of the character. So like if you put a
Hmm.
5 pip die, he'd get plus 5 charisma, right?
Yeah.
Um, but every time you put a die in a road, you also activate a special ability to manipulate your dice. And so it's not only the puzzle of where to put things and where to get certain colors. You have objective cards of where to put the colors. Um, then you're incentivized by where to put the number, like the biggest rolled die faces. But then you get these abilities. So if I put a die in one row, I get to activate an ability to manipulate the dice even further. Um, and where Sagrada is this really nice kind of Azul weight Sudoku puzzle with colors and numbers, I think Role Player elevates it by letting you have a little bit more control to manipulate the dice, to use these abilities, and to have things chain off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then even on top of that, they have, um, a card market, so you can buy cards and bid for turn order, and it's just really really clever game. And playing Dice Hospital and like having that little dice puzzle just made me realize how much I was missing Role Player. Because Dice Hospital really does feel, with less of a spatial element, um, a bit like Role Player to me, where you're trying to manipulate the dice.
Yeah.
So I would love to see Role Player.
For sure. Yeah, I would love to play this game too. I want to say that they do have a license there, or they're at least waiting for one.
Mm-hmm.
So here's to hoping that it comes soon. And I love that you can just use this character in a D&D campaign. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we do. For the listeners out there, we do have a history of D&D, Jacob and me,
Mm-hmm.
Jacob and I. So
No, it rhymed. Leave it.
oh yeah, oh yeah. uh, yeah, so that's a great choice. I would love to try this out. It's been on my list and on my radar for quite a while.
And they're growing the franchise too. Cartographers has gotten a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of buzz, and Role Player Adventures just came out, which is a kind of a campaign style game in the universe. And so,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
I think it has a really rich backing now that I think we might see a digital adaptation sometime soon.
for sure.
So,
I think there's definitely market for that game
mhm.
in particular. So awesome. All right, let's finish this out with our number one choices. At least I went from my number five to number one. But so this is the game that I thought of immediately that I just wanted to play so bad digitally because I want to play with someone else. The solo mode in this game is difficult. It's one of those AIs where your turn that you're taking for your AI is longer than your own turn, which is
Oof.
such a disappointment. Yet when I played the game, I the first time I did it two handed and it was fantastic just to see what it was all about. And this game is Barrage. So Barrage is a game that is definitely up my wheelhouse, or at least not to say that I'm good at this game or anything, but it's something that I would love to play over and over again with real people. Barrage is a game where it's kind of set in like this alternative 1950s or 1920s universe where people are using um, the dams that are placed in the Swiss Alps, I believe, to generate hydro and generate power, which is in turn will get you victory points. And you're doing this through worker placement and placing buildings on a shared map. And so there's a lot of interaction, lots of blocking, and a lot of strategy and tactics too if you do get blocked out, which is so tight. I love these games that are really tight. It reminds me a lot of Terra Mystica, where the board state is always the same. Uh, the variation is subtle, but it makes it different. It feel different every time where you want to build and where you want to like the amount of water that is like running down these dams and rivers. The like at the head of each mountain, it'll be different each time, and so it still feels different. You do have asynchronous powers as well. You represent different countries, even though there's only four of them. It'd be cool to see how they balanced out in a meta where people were playing it competitively online on Board Game Arena, and just to this is a game that warrants lots of plays and that you have to study the map, study the the factions and everything. There's already an expansion for it with an additional faction, and probably more to come, like different maps especially. And so it's a game that I would I've already thought a lot about it, and I've only played it like twice because of the limitations of playing with other people, and playing solo is a little bit difficult. There's probably a scripted version of it on tabletop that would make it easier, but still it's a tough script to write. This AI, it's quite convoluted. So yeah, I think it's best played multiplayer. I had a taste for it, and I just want to drink it all in a little bit more, and so that's Barrage. That's the number one game that I would love to see have a digital version of.
That's great. Yeah, and I know that this one is also just really, really tight and very interactive. And so
Mm.
I would expect it to be, you know, not only that you don't have to deal with kind of an AI, a kind of burdensome AI, but you also get that really tight interactive experience with another person, right? Where
Yeah.
they're reading your moves and they're trying to cut you off, where sometimes AI you don't quite get that direct combat feel,
Hmm.
that direct competition. So yeah,
Exactly. And
I
even
totally see that.
even if there was an AI, like if there was a dedicated app for this game, like they could automate the AI to take those turns even faster on
Hmm.
a solo mode, and that would make it better. At least
Yeah.
and so you can save your brain power for yourself and not for the cards or tiles that you're flipping over. So yeah, no, yeah, but that interaction and playing not against the game, but against other players
Hmm.
and their strategies. That's just something I'm really looking for, and I would find it in Barrage if it was online. So there you go.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Well, I struggled trying to decide which games were going to come on this list and which were not. I have several more games lined up that I would just love to see digital adaptations for. Whether just um, things that would benefit from automation features or games that I just think would match the asynchronous format well. But I have to say, this last game is um, I mean, it's my favorite game, and that's kind of a spoiler there, but it's Clank.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I would love to see Clank have a digital adaptation. Renegade Studios already has a companion app for it that you can use for the
Mm-hmm.
tabletop, which kind of pulls up random encounters and like random things that happen during board setup, like you're supposed to change the way the board is set up, or you step onto a tile and a random encounter happens, right? And so they already have this kind of framework to make the game more interesting, um, but only while you are playing on a physical tabletop, right? And so I would love to see um, either just a board game arena adaptation of the original game itself, or better yet, an app for Clank that incorporates these random events and that incorporates these interesting things that the companion app is doing um, into
Mm-hmm.
itself, so that there's this added bonus to you're playing digitally, and this computer can do things too. Generate these random events, these new things to make the game feel new and unique each time you play it, right?
Yeah.
Because I would love even to just play this with people across the country, but better yet, use the framework that they already have to make a full-fledged app that has this new revitalization and kind of rejuvenation of the base game by allowing it to be a little more dynamic. So
Yeah.
I would just love to be playing Clank every day.
Totally. That would be a staple for sure. That would be
Hmm.
so fun. I would love to play a lot more Clank as well. That's a family favorite. That's one of Ariel's favorite games as well, and so we've had a hoot and a holler playing that, and um yeah, I would be totally down for that. Good choice. But I think that wraps up this conversation. Thank you guys for sticking around and listening to our top 10 games that we hope and pray for a digital version of. And feel free to reach out to us if you have some games that we might have missed that would make a perfect online game. And we will catch you in the next episode. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening. Don't forget you can leave a review, catch us on YouTube, or reach out to us at boardgamedoctors@gmail.com.